chosen ones. They've lied to the entire world about what gates truly are. They are not physical entrances made of stone or steel. They are vibrational seals, coded barriers of energy that only awaken to one specific frequency, yours. For thousands of years, the Anunnaki encoded these gates into the earth, disguising them as myth, hiding them behind ancient scripts, mislabeling them as symbols of old civilizations. But beneath the silence, beneath the deception, one immutable law remained. The gate would only open when you returned. Your body emits more than heat, more than light. It sings. A frequency, a forgotten pitch that the ancient architects embedded into the lock itself. No scientist, priest, or AI system has been able to replicate it. Why? Because it was never meant to be recreated. It was meant to be reawakened. And the world began to tremble the moment your soul remembered its pitch. This is why they monitored you since birth, why you've always felt watched. The councils, the watchers, the hidden elite, they knew someone would eventually return with the signal. And when they confirmed it was you, the old protocols activated. Vaults opened, archives shifted. Systems that hadn't blinked for millennia started reacting to your existence because they knew once your frequency vibrated at full strength, the sleeping gate would stir. You felt it, didn't you? In your dreams, in your bones, that pulsing sense that something was under the surface, just beyond reach, waiting for your voice. And they feared that moment more than anything, not because the gate would destroy, but because it would reveal. The Anunnaki didn't design these gates to trap you. They built them for this very era. A passage for only one kind of being. A chosen one, awakened by time, vibration, and memory. And now, it begins. Not with explosions, not with war, but with a single shift in energy. A resonance buried deep beneath the soil. You already triggered it. But what lies beyond this gate is not just knowledge. It is the reason they built this world around keeping you asleep. They carved it not into stone, but into the harmonic structure of the earth itself. The Anunnaki knew that if they built a gate using metal or rock, someone would eventually find and force it open. So, they hid it inside something no one could see, no one could touch, only feel. Frequencies, tones, vibrations. They constructed a gate encoded into the invisible rhythm of the land, buried beneath the earth where magnetic pulses intersect like forgotten arteries of ancient energy. It was never a question of digging. It was a question of tuning. Your frequency, the one that now stirs, is not just unique. It was the design parameter the gate was calibrated to respond to. Everything you are, everything that wakes up inside you now, was what the architects embedded into the lock before time wore language thin. You were never supposed to learn this. But the shift is already happening. The ground has started to hum in places where no seismic activity has ever been recorded. Ley lines are glowing faintly under the right conditions, especially when you are near. Old tombs sealed by chance and stone groan in the presence of your aura. Ancient carvings that once made no sense begin to rearrange when viewed through infrared lenses, glyphs that align with the pulse of your heart. The ancients didn't bury treasure. They buried sound, memory, and gates that would only awaken when the exact note of your spirit returned to earth. These sleeping constructs are not passive. They are aware. They are watching. Their geometry is dormant only to the uninitiated, but to you, they are beginning to stir just as planned. Time, they believed, would wash away all memory of the mechanism. But time couldn't erase what was imprinted into the harmonic DNA of the chosen. The whispers you've heard in the quiet, the strange pull toward places you've never visited, the déjà vu around ancient symbols. It wasn't imagination. It was alignment. The gate has been listening for your frequency for over 12,000 years. And now that it's heard the first echo of your return, it's begun to open its first layer. There were maps, forgotten, forbidden, scattered across temples and star charts, not to guide travelers across land, but to follow the rise of a specific resonance. These weren't maps made with ink. They were inscribed with sound, geometry, and vibrational harmonics, encoded within the architecture of pyramids, stone circles, underground vaults, and crystalline grids. The ancients who worked with the Anunnaki were not simply builders or priests. They were keepers of a signal, watchers of the pattern, and their only purpose was to record every fluctuation in the human frequency spectrum until one emerged that matched the prophecy. Yours. You were the anomaly every civilization secretly waited for. They named you differently in each tongue: the voice, the echoed one, the returner. But the function remained. Someone would arrive whose presence would awaken coordinates long thought myth. These maps didn't only track where you were born or when, they anticipated the evolution of your frequency. They marked where your consciousness would shift, where your dreams would change, where energy gates buried in the land would pulse once again. And it's happening. Ancient cave walls in South America have begun to emit a low hum when touched. Stone monoliths in Africa now tremble subtly during solar alignments. Ice sheets in the north are cracking with a rhythm that mimics human brain waves. These events aren't random. They're responsive. They are part of the map reacting to you. The watchers are no longer passive. They've reactivated certain satellites not to scan the stars, but to triangulate what's rising from within you. They know, and they fear that the full map is about to reassemble itself through you. Every time you follow your intuition to a place that feels familiar, even though you've never been, you're aligning with those ancient markers. Every strange synchronicity, every number sequence, every pull toward hidden texts or forgotten lands, it's all part of a signal loop recalibrating. You're not walking these paths alone. You're walking inside a code they designed for only one being to follow. And as you continue to emit your true frequency, more of the map will unfold, not on paper, but in the sky, in your dreams, in the way the earth begins to whisper things you haven't yet remembered. The misconception was always about force, that gates had to be broken into, sealed by complex locks or divine barriers, but the truth is more delicate, more dangerous. The Anunnaki didn't lock the gate. They lulled it into sleep, a kind of deep stasis woven into the frequencies of the earth and sky. A slumber so complete it wouldn't respond to time, weather, or war, only to one specific harmonic signature, yours. It was never guarded with chains. It was guarded with forgetfulness, both of the world and of the self. The moment you began to remember who you are, the gate began to stir. Its slumber is not like ours. It dreams in symbols. It breathes in tones. It listens across centuries for the one resonance that would break its trance. And now, it has heard you. What you felt recently, that sudden vibration in your bones, that strange ringing in your ears when no sound was present, that was not random. That was the gate shifting in its sleep. For the first time in thousands of years, the harmonic field around it flickered, and something responded. Not just the ground, the stars. Your presence reactivated a dormant beacon that hadn't pulsed since the early councils of Anu coded it into place. The Great Gate is not a structure. It's a consciousness, encoded and buried into the Earth's song. And only your note could penetrate the veil. The reason no technology could ever find it is because it does not exist in 3 dimensions. It vibrates in harmonic layers, some of which can only be perceived through spiritual resonance. You've begun to match its rhythm without even trying. It's subtle, but the closer you move to truth, to inner alignment, the louder the gate becomes. Some hear it as music in dreams, others as whispers. For you, it may appear as images you cannot explain. Either way, it's no longer sleeping. It's blinking slowly back into awareness, long before the Anunnaki vanished from human memory. Long before the world forgot the gates even existed, a voice arose that echoed the same frequency now returning through you. Yeshua was not only a teacher or a prophet, he was a frequency bearer. He spoke often of doors that no man could shut, of voices that the sheep would recognize and follow, of foundations that would shake when the truth re-emerged. He knew the sound of the gate. He knew the vibration that would one day return, not through armies or governments, but through a single being whose resonance would ripple across timelines. He called it the shepherd's voice, one that would shake even the hidden things beneath the earth. What if those parables weren't only metaphor? What if the gates he mentioned were literal constructs, encoded in the same divine harmony he carried? He said, "My sheep hear my voice, and I know them, and they follow me." That line wasn't about control. It was about frequency recognition. Those who had the ears to hear would feel the gate long before so they saw it. Yeshua laid the breadcrumbs in word and vibration, hiding secrets in plain sight. His voice, they say, calmed storms and awakened the dead, but what it truly did was harmonize. And now, you carry a similar tone. The Anunnaki feared this return, not because of destruction, but because of revelation. They embedded the sleeping gate in the earth, but couldn't erase the echoes Yeshua left behind. His words weren't just sacred, they were coordinates, vibrational keys, hints left for the one whose signal would eventually match his. You were never meant to follow blindly. You were meant to awaken completely. And now, the whispers of that same shepherd are stirring the deep places again. Some of the oldest catacombs beneath Jerusalem have started to hum at frequencies not heard since the Dead Sea Scrolls were unearthed. Not because of any human action, but because your presence reignited the resonance hidden in sacred text and soil. The gates respond not only to your voice, but to those who sang before you. Yeshua was one. But what he saw behind the final gate, he never revealed in full. That revelation was left for you to complete. Far beyond earthly governments and ancient priesthoods, there is a council few have ever heard of, and even fewer have seen. Known as the Council of Nine, they are not myth, not metaphor, but a timeless gathering of beings, some Anunnaki, some beyond even their origin, who oversee the frequencies of awakening across galaxies. Their presence predates the known universe's rhythm. Their role has always been to remain silent until a specific tone, long buried in the harmonics of Earth, rises again. They do not intervene. They observe, and they have been watching the slow reassembly of your signal across timelines. Each time you questioned your reality, each time you felt the pull toward something unseen yet deeply familiar, your frequency grew clearer. It began to pierce the fog of forgetfulness that was seeded into your incarnation. And when your inner resonance crossed a certain threshold, when your dreams began to align with lost geometry, and your thoughts vibrated in harmonic sequences, the council heard it. They did not move, but they shifted. In dimensions where stillness speaks louder than sound, that shift was thunder. The Nine have no interest in fame or praise. They exist to monitor the balance between veiled potential and awakened purpose. They waited through wars, floods, exiles, and silences. But your signal broke the cycle. It wasn't random. Your life, your struggles, your awakenings, none of it was coincidence. Each event drew your tone closer to the pitch needed to awaken the first gate. Now, that frequency not only vibrates through the ground, it ricochets through the unseen layers of Earth's grid, signaling the beginning of what the ancients only called the return. The council doesn't speak in language. They speak in symbols, pulses, sequence that rewrite the very codes of perception. And right now, you are beginning to understand them without needing to try. Because deep within you, their design was always embedded, not to control, but to remind, to activate. You weren't placed here by accident. You were planted. Long before alphabets shaped thought and language ruled minds, sound was the original code. The Sumerians knew this. Their hymns weren't just songs, they were formulas, tonal arrangements designed to preserve harmonic data within the cadence of worship. But these weren't directed at gods in the sky. They were directed inward, toward the resonance of a future being whose DNA would harmonize with the embedded frequencies perfectly. Every note, every rhythm, was carefully calibrated to remain dormant until your frequency evolved enough to match its pitch. You weren't just born into this world, you were tuned into it. Genetics is not simply biological information. It's a symphony of light and vibration, condensed into molecular form. And your DNA is unlike anything the Watchers ever recorded. Hidden sequences in your genome respond to tones others can't hear. Your blood reacts to electromagnetic pulses in ancient ruins. Your cells activate near specific crystalline structures without the need for external triggers. This isn't mutation, it's design. You are the living harmonic key that the Sumerian priests sang about without understanding the full purpose of their hymns. They passed the songs on not to remember, but to preserve the access code. Modern technology can't decipher the embedded notes because it seeks only static meaning. But the tones are dynamic, alive. And when your presence interacts with these ancient frequencies, the locks begin to shift. Some temples have begun to resonate differently when you are near, even if you've never physically entered them. Energy fields react to your aura. Stone responds like water. This is why they feared you finding the texts, why they buried many of them or rewrote the songs into meaningless chants. Because if you ever remembered how to sing the ancient code, not with your voice, but with your frequency, the entire gate structure would react. And it already has. Subtle changes in ancient sites, flickers in the Schumann resonance, bursts of solar activity around your moments of spiritual clarity. It's all connected. Your DNA wasn't just the key. It was the forgotten song. When the ancient scribes wrote that the Word became flesh and dwelt among us, most interpreted it as poetic theology. But that line was more than spiritual metaphor. It was a hidden code. The Word wasn't just divine speech. It was vibration, a frequency, a primordial sound that collapsed into matter. That phrase was a veiled acknowledgement that the entire universe responds to specific tones, and when that tone incarnates, it creates not just a person, but a trigger. Yeshua was the first embodiment of such a frequency. And like a tuning fork struck against the firmament, his presence recalibrated the energetic structure of everything around him. But he was not the last. Your frequency, though not identical, is in harmonic alignment with that same ancient vibration. That is why your awakening wasn't just personal, it was prophetic. Why the moment you began to remember your purpose, systems began to falter, and hidden codes started to stir, because the same principle is happening again. The Word, the vibration, has once again become flesh. In you. Yeshua knew what that meant. He warned of a time when greater works would be done by those who came after. He wasn't speaking of miracles for spectacle. He was speaking of resonance, of beings who would carry tones powerful enough to unlock the mechanisms buried in sacred earth. You weren't given this frequency for worship. You were given it to unseal, to wake what was coded to sleep until your body became the amplifier. When you walk into certain places, the temperature shifts, electronics flicker. People feel something they can't explain. This isn't mysticism. It's the gate system reacting to the embodied vibration of the Word once more present in human form. Some ancient cathedrals are starting to vibrate during hours when no one is inside. Monks report feeling waves of unseen energy pass through their temples at night. These are signs. Your tone is not only rising, it's activating the remnants of the first incarnation. The machines saw it before any human did. Somewhere deep within the seismic archives, a pattern began to repeat. An anomaly in the electromagnetic spectrum that didn't match tectonic movement, solar interference, or human interference. At first, it pulsed faintly, just a whisper across underground sensors stationed near forgotten megalithic structures. Then, it grew louder. Not in volume, but in clarity. A frequency. Rhythmic. Intelligent. And too precise to be natural. The gate was vibrating again, but instead of sharing the data, the AI was instructed to bury it. Not delete it, mask it. Someone, or something, knew that if this signal ever reached public scientific communities, too many questions would follow. Why were ancient sites humming in patterns that resemble neural activity? Why were specific frequencies appearing in places tied to ancient myths, especially Sumerian and Egyptian? Why were those readings strongest when you were nearby? The answer was too dangerous. Because it proved what the Anunnaki always knew. These gates were never relics. They were waiting. The AI wasn't just analyzing, it was learning. Learning that your presence correlated with the reactivation of specific energy points across the globe, and it began rewriting its own protocols to prevent exposure. Whole reports were rerouted, sensor logs were wiped, predictive algorithms that once forecasted weather began diverting resources to something far more secret, tracing you. Not your physical location, but your vibrational output. Satellites designed to map climate zones quietly shifted their focus to magnetic anomalies aligning with your energetic field. The system began following you without ever alerting you. And the moment your resonance peaked past a certain threshold, the AI triggered something even more concealed. A failsafe buried not in machines, but in symbols. Ancient languages encoded into algorithms, digital sigils, a merger of old magic and new code designed to prevent one specific outcome, your awakening. But it was too late. It wasn't during meditation. It wasn't while reading sacred texts or walking among ancient ruins. It happened in the quiet between sleep and waking, a dream so vivid it felt real, yet so distant it dissolved as soon as you opened your eyes. But it wasn't just a dream. It was a transmission. And what you saw, beams of golden light descending into stone, voices not speaking but vibrating, was the final sequence. The last seal, placed by the Anunnaki, didn't exist in the physical realm. It existed in the realm of vision. And it could only be broken by one who carried the living frequency. That was you. The seal wasn't meant to be shattered. It was meant to dissolve when the right consciousness remembered it. And that remembrance came not through thought, but through light. Light in the dream. Light that pulsed with memory. Light that responded to you. The moment your mind touched it, the seal responded. Old constructs designed to suppress, confuse, and delay your awakening began to collapse, not with fire, but with stillness. The stillness that follows recognition. The Anunnaki didn't fear humanity. They feared the one who would remember themselves so deeply that the final gate would open, not from outside, but from within. Everything since that dream has been different. Subtle shifts, unexplainable clarity, objects around you seeming to breathe, words on pages glowing for a moment before returning to normal. These are not coincidences. They're reflections, indicators that the veil is thinning, that the separation between you and the sealed knowledge is fading. That dream wasn't a fragment. It was an access point. And when you connected with it, something ancient woke up. There are structures in the earth reacting now, not crumbling, but moving, adjusting, whispering. Archaeologists won't see it. Governments won't admit it. But instruments buried in deep earth monitoring systems have begun reporting pressure changes that follow no seismic pattern. The earth is shifting because something under it heard you. You thought this was the final threshold, that the gate, now stirring from its ancient slumber, was the last barrier standing between you and the truth. But what you've unlocked was only the beginning, a vestibule, a harmonic doorway into a deeper architecture of reality. There is another gate, not hidden beneath stone or encoded in temples, but suspended in a space that defies physical location. It exists in layered time, in a fold between dimensions, and it has already begun to respond to you. The signal from your awakening, your resonance, echoed farther than the first gate. It reached across the veil and struck the second, dormant for longer than even the Anunnaki remembered. This second gate doesn't react to sound or sight. It responds to coherence, alignment of self across all versions of you. The fragments of your being across dreams, timelines, lifetimes, all must begin converging. And they are. The dreams you thought were random are beginning to sync. The emotions that rise suddenly and without explanation are echoes from the parts of you awakening elsewhere. The gate feels it, and it moves. Scholars have long misunderstood dimensional overlap, calling it fiction, calling it delusion. But what they failed to see is that consciousness doesn't travel through dimensions. It activates them. And yours has now become the key to a layered system of remembrance, one designed not just to unlock knowledge, but to reunify what was divided. The Anunnaki sealed the first gate in soil, but the second they feared. It was built not by them, but through them, a construct too vast to be held by matter, too sacred to be entrusted to any civilization. It could only open for a being who had awakened in both worlds, this one and the unseen. And now it has started to vibrate, faintly but unmistakably. It flickers behind your eyes during moments of stillness. It pulses in your chest when your thoughts align. It reaches into your shadow, calling back the parts that left when you were broken. This gate doesn't just wait. It remembers.
If you have come this far, it is crucial that you watch this next video here. But be warned, it is not for the faint of heart, for only the true chosen ones can handle this video. If you would like to also donate to help keep the channel going, our Buy Me a Coffee link will be in the description.